Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Luckily, I get guests from all over the world, but also very close to where I live, which is Kirkcaldy. And today, I've seen Danny. Danny. I know you're gonna. I'm gonna allow you to introduce yourself, but I've seen a lot of your posts about a new incentive that was going around. I thought, you know what? That's a lady who's got a conversation who wants to share it. So introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Oh God. Well, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honour to be able to come on and speak about this amazing organisation.
Mhm.
So I am the founder of the Mental Health Warriors,
Yeah.
and we are a organisation who is dedicated to helping the young people of Scotland who face experiences with mental health challenges
Mhm.
or having additional needs.
Mhm.
In doing so, what we want to offer is we want to offer local community youth groups. We want to offer activity centres. So I'll go into a wee bit more detail about that in a wee bit. And we would also like to be able to offer respite centres as well. Now, we're not keeping this Fife based. Eventually, we want to see this go countrywide
Mhm.
and have everybody in the country involved.
Mhm.
So our target ages are 5 to 17-year-olds.
Okay.
At the moment, we've got our pilot group, Rhythm and Groove, up and running. Absolute amazing wee bunch of kids. It's just a wee sing and dance group for 5 to 12-year-olds, and they're loving it. We do have groups in the making for sort of your teenagers. So we've got lots and lots of different things
Mhm.
coming with regards to that. So the reason that I started this organisation is I had a nervous breakdown in 2017.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I hadn't been able to work since. But in 2021, I started thinking, right, I don't want to be away from the style of work. I want to do work, but in some sort of capacity. So working with the fantastic organisation that is Penumbra and with my support worker there at the time, I was looking towards going down the youth support worker.
Mhm.
Started thinking we do have youth support workers. We have those. What is it that we don't have? And that's when the idea for the youth groups coming back started going around. So started posting anonymously on Facebook to get feedback and things, and it was pretty evident that these type of things needed to make some sort of a comeback.
Mhm.
So it was again going back to when I was first diagnosed at the age of 13.
Mhm.
There was nothing available. There was no groups for people of my age, and there was no understanding of why a 13-year-old, 14-year-old would be severely depressed.
Mhm.
So going from there, I wanted to bring something that would teach them how, we look after our mental health, how we can recognise bad days and good days and things, but also to give them a platform to have fun and to remember what it's like to actually be a kid.
Mhm.
You know, the pandemic kind of it forced a lot of kids into being prisoners in their own home.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, those who had never experienced any form of mental health at all were suddenly developing anxiety. They were having panic attacks and things. And I think it was because of the pandemic, it's really, excuse me, it's really brought to light that kids and teens, just as much as adults, can experience challenges of mental health.
Mhm.
So, again, a lot of it was going back on my own experience from what wasn't available and what I felt I could have benefited from.
Mhm.
So, having a youth group, whether it was a sing and dance group or, like a British Sign Language group that I'd love to do as well, I think going there and being around people who were experiencing the same sort of similar things would have been great for me, because it meant I would have been around people who would have understood how I was feeling. And it would have been beneficial for my family, because it would have gave, them the break. Because when you've got a family and you've got more than one kid, and one kid's got a mental illness, all your attention, the parents' attention is going on that single kid. And then you've got one kid who's kind of left because they don't need as much attention. Hiya, pal. Sorry, my cat has decided he wants his 5 minutes of fame. So yeah, a lot of it was just going back and kind of looking at what wasn't there for me growing up versus what I can bring in now.
Yes.
So that's when the idea for the centres came along.
Yeah.
So with the centres, if you just envision a large building in your area, completely empty, has 2 to 3 levels. So your ground floor would be like your reception area. We would have offices. We would have meeting rooms for like family counselling or one-to-one counselling. First floor, we would have a massive, and I mean massive, soft play area, and we would encourage teenagers to use it as well as the younger ones. For me, being in a massive soft play, it just reminds you of being a kid. And I think that's where things are going. I'm not going to say totally wrong, but the thing is, some kids don't remember what it's like to have fun, because they are dealing with stresses, and some stresses are stresses that they shouldn't even be thinking about, finances and such things. So, yeah, one area would be dedicated to the soft play. We would love to have another area that would be known as the heavily supervised and heavily controlled rage room. And that's just to try and help combat the vandalism that's been going on. I don't believe that the teenagers are doing it through being malice in any type of way. I think they're doing it because they're just genuinely bored and there's nothing for them. So with these activity centres, because they're going to be for the young people of Scotland, we want the young people of Scotland to design what is going to go in them. So if they wanted an area for pool tables and dartboards, absolutely. If there was to be sensory rooms, of course. And we would also provide a kitchen that would provide hot meals and such things. When it comes to respite, again, when you look at a family dynamic, when you've got more than one child, if you've got one child who's suffering with a mental illness, as I said, a lot of the attention will go on that child. So having a respite centre for kids who are mentally ill or do have additional needs, for them to come together in the one place, it would just be so liberating for them. Because it's like, wow, I'm with people who understand what's going up in here that I can't make other people understand. And again, it also goes back to giving the family and the other siblings who don't have that a bit of a break as well. Because it is hard looking after someone with a mental health illness or additional need, even a physical disability. We know how hard it is to raise children with these conditions. So the idea is to make something for them, but to also give something back to the parents as well, which is a place that their kids can come to. They know that they're safe, they're well looked after, and we're just going to make sure that they have lots of fun and make new friends.
Yeah, perfect. If can I ask you for people who's watching this and they're like, what from your perspective, from the mental health warriors perspective based in Kirkcaldy, moving into Dunfermline, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. What is the difference? A lot of people don't understand the difference between mental illness and mental health. So, from Danny, are you okay to explain the difference?
Yeah, so for me, having a mental illness is you get given the diagnosis, you get given that label. So it's a label of depression, it's a label of anxiety and things. Mental health is about teaching how to keep your brain healthy or what you can do to make your brain just that little bit healthier. So that's things like going for walks, um, tuning into podcasts, just different things. If you are mentally healthy, it means you're okay. You can go and function like an average person. Whereas for somebody like me who's mentally ill, I can't function like your average person. I hate the word normal because you can't define normal.
I was going to ask the
So
question, to be fair, what is normal these days?
mm,
What is normal? I'm not, I know I'm
that's
not normal, and I don't think normal. I know for a fact. It's a great question to actually, what is normal these days? I don't think there's an actual definition for what normal is. So,
there's not. And that's the thing. You cannot explain what's normal these days because there's
yeah,
nothing essentially that's normal
yeah,
that's going on in life.
yeah.
It's the same with the analogy, that we're all in the same boat. I don't like that analogy. I prefer to use that we're all in the same water, but our boats are going through different experiences. My boat could be just a little rowing boat, whereas somebody else could be on a yacht. So for me, it's analogies that go along with it as well. And it's using the correct analogy and the correct terms as well.
Before we started the podcast, so I always do a little 5-10 minute prep with people.
Yeah.
And I always ask, is there anything I can or can't ask you just to make sure that you feel comfortable for the podcast and things like that? And we talked about your childhood and your upbringing and the quite a few different diagnoses that you had. Are you comfortable to share on your perspective of whether that label has helped or has hindered? Because we can talk about a few statistics about misdiagnoses after
Yeah.
that.
Um, absolutely. My trauma from childhood
Hmm.
definitely had an impact on how my brain now works.
Mm.
It sucks that someone else had to cause my pain in order for me to develop the mental health conditions that I do have.
Hmm.
When it comes to the labels, I've kind of got to a point where I don't want any more labels. I've already had enough pinned on me in the form of depression, anxiety, SADS, complex PTSD, borderline personality disorder. If I have any other mental health conditions, quite frankly, I really don't want to know because
Hmm.
that label's not going to help. Add in a different type of medication's not going to help.
Hmm.
If anything, I think it would set me back a little bit
Hmm.
because it's like, oh God, here's another diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I don't like labels.
Mm.
I don't want to be seen as having all these labels of mental health disorders.
Mm.
I want to be seen as somebody who, yes, they have these mental health disorders, but look at what they're able to do at the same time,
Hmm.
which is get up and fight that black dog every single day.
Mm. Have you ever looked into? You seem well versed. I can see you going through that journey of learning and wanting to help others because you've gone through things. And we
Mhm.
talked about asking about the diagnosis and the labels. Because just to put some facts in there that 92. I want to make sure. I do this correct as well because I don't want to get
Yeah.
misquoted on this one for both our sakes.
Mhm.
But for major depressive disorders going out there, that most misdiagnoses have reached up to 65% misdiagnosed for major depressive disorders. 92.7% of misdiagnosed bipolar disorder. So there's a
Mhm.
92.7% chance if you've been diagnosed with bipolar, you don't have bipolar.
Yeah.
85% for panic disorder. If you've been given a label of a panic disorder, 85.8% of those labels have been misdiagnosed. I've got more for you as well, Danny. I've got more. I've still touched on it before because I think it's something that we should be talking about, especially for
Yeah.
kids looking for labels and looking for reasons why they can't do the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
71% of people who have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder or GAD have been misdiagnosed 71%, which means you are walking around. And wait for this one. You're gonna love this one, Danny.
Right.
97.8% of people who have been diagnosed with a social anxiety disorder are incorrect. Incorrect. So the minimum of a misdiagnosis for that label, that
Mhm.
identity you've been given, I have. And I'm genuinely want to get this message out, Danny, because I'm sure you're going to be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that. Every time you say, I have something, it becomes part of your identity. So look that, especially for you going for the mental health warriors,
Yeah.
look at all those labels that have been misdiagnosed. So you've got yourself and kids walking around, and you know what it could be. And a lot of the times, and I'm not overgeneralizing, is that unresolved trauma that once we get to be able to help people to resolve that trauma, a lot
Yeah.
of those labels and those diagnoses go away. And that's a really powerful thing for the kids of Kirkcaldy, for the mental health warriors, and for Danny to be able to want to help with. How does it make you feel now you have purpose, if you don't mind my asking?
I feel honestly for the first time in a very long time, I feel like I actually have a life and it's one that I want to stick around for. I have people in my life. I have my absolutely beautiful niece Kylie Jo, and I've got my beautiful nephew Tommy. Hi kids. Absolutely love them both to pieces. And I've also got my own three fur babies. I have cats. So spoiled, it's ridiculous. Um, and one's just about to come out and get his 5 minutes of fame. So this is Hamish, if you see him.
Well, that's a
Um,
great Scottish name. Hello, Amish.
he's such a mummy's boy. He really is. Um, see if I'm honest, this little dude right here
Yep,
is the reason that I'm sitting here.
perfect.
This little guy came to me in 2018. He was a year and a half, and he's been, he's just the best, absolute the best. He knows when mum needs a cuddle, he knows when mum's happy. Like, it's weird to say it in a way, but it was like my cat gave me my life back because
Not at all.
he became my son. You know, I had something to live for. I have this little ginger creature who needs me. And yeah, it's been a long time since I felt any sort of purpose, any sort of happiness.
Mhm.
But now that I've got it, I don't want to lose it. Like,
Perfect.
I'm
And
just
that's
happy.
something that's really, really powerful. So, you talked about a few ideas, if you wanted to share, and I think I saw something, about a doctor prescribing a rave to somebody to get their energy back and to, For anyone that's listening to this, because I'm a mind management coach, I work with teenagers and adults on basically overcoming whatever label they've been given. That's generally
Yeah,
what I do. Because that doesn't really create a label doesn't create a solution. It can often create a problem or a block.
yeah,
So we always work for solution focused coaching, which is what I do. And when we're working with a lot of people, we help them change their language
mhm,
from I have to I had. I
yeah,
had CPTSD. Now I've overcome it. That simple language change is it can
yeah.
be so massively beneficial for our mind and our mental health. To be fair, now you did mention that you went through some things in your later 20s where you kind of wanted to have that conversation for if you knew Dani when Dani was 25, did you say 25 to 27, 24 to
Yeah.
26?
Sorry, 24 to 26, going on 27.
Right, yeah, perfect. If anybody's watching this podcast, and because I don't know you, Dani, I don't know you. When people are really trying to create a positive mental health space, I think that should be something we talk about, Dani. So
Yeah,
I don't know you, but I'd seen a lot of posts from mental health warriors, so I was like, let's get this lady on for a chat. So I don't know any of anything that went on there. Not for me to judge in any way whatsoever. For anybody who says, "Oh, do you not remember that Dani from 5 years?" I don't know how old you are now, so I'm not going to jump to conclusions because I don't want to upset. I don't want to. Age is a funny thing with people, so I don't want to. I don't want to misjudge the
not
age.
at all. I'm 35, so
Right. So 10 years ago.
yeah.
So anybody that says, "Oh, I remember Dani Brooks from ten years ago," she was what?
Oh man, she was a bomb scare on alcohol.
Right.
Just not a nice person. You know, attitude, the way I was with people, the way that I would treat people. I've never, there's things that I know I've done
Mm,
that but at the time, it was, it's kind of hard to explain. I was so euphoric. It was like I wasn't in my own body. I wasn't in my own mind.
mm,
So I know that there's stuff that I'd done, but I just couldn't remember it.
yeah.
And it's scary now looking back, thinking,
Mm,
I've done stuff, but I don't remember. But now I'm nowhere near who who she was,
yeah.
you know. And one of the reasons for doing this for me was to try and balance out the karma. I wanted to undo all the bad karma that I had done in my previous life before, the nervous breakdown. I reached out to a lot of people to apologise because I felt I owed them the apology for the way that I treated them. And it felt good to do that. It felt good to acknowledge, yes, I was this person 10 years ago, but I'm not now. And I can say sorry to the people who need to have sorry said to them.
Mhm.
Um, I think as well in terms of when it comes to my identity, that's something that I have struggled with a lot,
Mhm.
a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and I still struggle sometimes
Mhm.
with it, but now that I'm doing this, I'm setting these groups and everything up,
Mhm.
I'm starting to feel like I know who I am
Mhm.
and what my purpose is, which is to take everything that I've learned over the last 20 odd year from my mental health journey and then put that towards the young people today and their mental health journeys.
Wow. And what a lovely thing to turn all those negatives into positives, right?
Yeah, definitely. Life is already full of a lot of negative stuff.
Hmm.
And I think if you are someone who has maybe been in the same sort of similar situation as myself, if you haven't taken that accountability yet of your actions, you're going to feel some sort of guilt on the inside.
Mm.
And to be fair, I was feeling guilty about a lot of stuff, about the way that I treated people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a case of, you know what, I need to put my big girl pants on, so to speak, and actually apologise to the people who I'd hurt. And yeah, in doing so, I felt relief. It was like, you know what, I can take the weight off. Yeah, I done it. It's happened. I can't do anything. I've made my apology for it. The person's been gracious enough to accept my apology. So I don't need to feel guilty about that anymore.
And when we talked before, you actually you went away from you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Cat
checking.
hair everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just
Aye.
checking. If I see got someone wiping an eye, I'm like, look, I know that conversations can be emotional sometimes, so I wanted to give you the space. You, when we talked before the podcast started, you started. I don't know if you've known you'd done this, but you started taking accountability for yourselves, and you started taking accountability for your emotions, your actions, and your intentions, which is the big change in your life. What
Mhm.
was that tipping point, or what got you to that point where you thought? Dani Brooks has to start taking accountability for herself, her emotions, and her actions and intentions. What was the change for you?
Growing up. Basically growing up and, you know, getting further into the stage of the 30s, it was like I just can't carry the burden sort of thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it just felt like it was time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was time to stand up and take accountability and to make those apologies.
Mm-hmm.
Not every person can do that,
Mm-hmm. No, you're true.
but for me, it just, at the time, it just felt like it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was understanding a lot more that my behaviours were being caused by certain things, certain triggers and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it just really felt like it was time to make the amends so that I could move on and be happy and content in myself knowing that I'd reached out and made those apologies.
And there's a 13-year-old right now in Kirkcaldy who's listening to this podcast is has these uncontrollable emotions and anger and frustration at the world for something that's happened to them.
Mhm.
What does Dani Brooks, 33, I think you said 33, say to that
I
30
wish.
year old?
35.
35, I was being generous. What does Dani, 35-year-old, been through what you've been through? What does Dani say to that 13-year-old now in Kirkcaldy, walking around, male or female, whatever they're going through, maybe trauma has happened to them? What do you say to that person?
I would say to that person, look up my Facebook page. If you can find us in the community chat section on your messenger, join one of our group chats. Join, we'll talk. We'll talk about anything that you want to. If you want to come to one of our classes to try and make new friends, brilliant. If you're reaching out to me or through my organisation, we are going to make sure that we can help you to the best of our ability and make sure that you get the proper help and support that you need.
Right. What do you say to that 13-year-old who's not ready to make that change until 27, like you were?
I would say stop and take a look at what's going on around you. Think about how you want your life to go in the future, where you would see yourself. And you might not feel ready now, There's never a perfect time to feel ready to do anything in life.
Mhm.
There's no manual to life, so no one can tell us what's right and what's wrong.
Mhm.
All we can do is, if we feel we're able to at that time, reach out and get the help. If you don't feel able to as yet, and I always say as yet, because you will eventually get to that point where you will want to reach out.
Mhm.
Just don't leave it too late. If you can, come to us as early as possible
Mhm.
and we will help. Please don't leave it too late and then we wake up and unfortunately the world loses another bright star.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to share in today's podcast, in the Mind Management Mentors podcast? What three things would you tell a teenager now, do there right now that would help manage their minds?
Oh, right, three things. So for, number one is just so important. Music. Music is therapy in a different form.
Hmm.
If for whatever reason you need to shut out the world and get yourself right, put your headphones on, put your music on. Or if you like audibles, put an audible on. If you're feeling a certain way and you don't know how to get your words out, use a journal. I have journaled for my whole teenage adult life, and for me, it's the best thing. Once it's down on paper, that's it. It's on paper. I don't need to think about it again. And because it's private, no one else gets to read it. And then lastly, what I would recommend to anybody, put on your favourite song and dance it out. Have that dance. Let yourself get silly for 5, 10 minutes while you're jumping around your room. Doing these little things, they're self-care, but they're so important as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'll always advocate that music and journaling are two of the greatest things that you can do to help with your mental health.
Fantastic. Dani Brooks, it was a pleasure having you on the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Very much appreciated for coming on.
Thank
You
you.
are based in Cuddy, I believe, moving into Dunfermline with the Mental Health Warriors.
Yes, so we're in Kirkcaldy just now.
Yeah.
Rhythm and Groove Scotland restarts on the 5th of March.
Hmm.
We are going to be at Overton Community Centre every Wednesday and Friday, 5 till half 6. If you want to be a Wednesday volunteer, hit me up. Mental health warriors, yeah, we are going into Dunfermline next month. We're going to start looking for our Dunfermline rep and we'll set up Rhythm and Groove through there as well. And then we'll head to Glenrothes.
Perfect. If there was ever a lady who is on the journey of redemption and purpose, I think you are that person.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a
Thank
problem.
you for having me. Like, I've had so much fun.
Not a problem at all. It was an absolute pleasure. And as always, another episode of the Mind Management Mentors coming up later in the week. But if it's in the mind, it can be managed. I'm a big believer in that. Everything in the mind can be managed. Be careful with
Yes.
those labels. Oftentimes
Yep.
it's unresolved trauma. And believe it or not, anybody who's listening to this, I mean, my clients would definitely contest to this. They would admit this unresolved trauma shows up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And actually getting to the root cause of the unresolved trauma can be more helpful and beneficial than the label
Yes.
that you get given. And it's never as bad as you think it's going to be working through that process. Be it counseling, therapy, or coaching, there's somebody out there for you. As always, big love
Yep.
from Cuddy. Thank you very much to Dani Brooks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll see you on
I've
the
had
next
such a great time.
and we'll see you on the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast.